Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. We have the NCAAs, UConn, just one back to back. South Carolina, one as well. And the coach had some interesting thoughts or lack thereof, didn't she, Dr. Lopkin?
It was definitely a lack thereof
There you go.
when she should have been talking about the victory of South Carolina. She could have been talking about the fact that the women's basketball ratings hit its highest level
Yes,
ever,
crushed it.
beating the men's basketball finals. Instead,
Interesting.
she decided to state the opinion that if you believe you're a woman, you should be able to play on a women's team. Never mind the fact that we've already seen women injured by trans athletes. Never mind the fact that biological men are bigger, do tend to be stronger. Never mind the whole Leah Thomas incident where a substandard swimmer switched genders and then suddenly became dominant. No, if you think you're a woman, come on down.
I always say with Thomas and others, like, where's your shame? I mean, and where are the parents? I mean, it's like, stop it. But basically, the governing bodies aren't all on board with this, are they?
No, they're not. The National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics has come out and said that transgender biological men are not allowed to compete in women's sports. They finally came out defending women. And for those of you not familiar with the NAIA, they're basically the little brother to the NCAA. But it's a start. There's about 250 colleges that play in that league. And yes, if you are a biological male, you can compete on the male teams, not the female teams.
Yes, and as we were talking, as we were preparing, it's like, where's the shame? I mean, and where's the parents? I mean, please have some dignity. Sorry, I know it's not politically correct, but that's the view of Mr. Sherman. How do you like that?
And it's true. I mean, you've got these folks. Now, I believe it was NCAA. No, it wasn't. I don't remember which sport it was, but there was one NCAA sport that came up with a trans only event. If you believed, if you were a transsexual, you could compete on these teams. And they had to cancel it because they didn't get a single participant, which tells me that it's not about transsexuals competing in sports. It's about them trying to get an unfair advantage and discriminate against women.
Well done, Dr. Eric E. Lopkin. That's 100% spot on analysis. If it was about trans, then it would be loaded, wouldn't it? But now, no takers. I wonder why. You are 100% correct. But speaking of stupidity, and the View is always good for that, we have Sonny Halston, who blames the eclipse on global warming. That's almost there with Don Lemon saying that missing aircraft might have gone into a black hole. Both geniuses.
This was amazing. I've never seen anything like this. This comment was so stupid that even Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg had to pull her back and go, "No, you don't know what you're talking about." She was talking about the eclipse, the New York earthquake last week, and now the cicadas, which she didn't even know how to pronounce. She was calling them cicadas. The cicadas are coming back out.
Tomato.
Right.
What's the difference anyway?
And Whoopi Goldberg had to point out that the cicadas come out every 17 years and have been doing this for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The eclipse has nothing to do with climate change. It's completely predictable. They know when these things are going to happen decades and decades ahead of them. And earthquakes have nothing to do with climate change. But Sonny decided that these three things happening means climate change is becoming irreversible. It's something has to be done. And even her fellow members of The View thought this was monumentally stupid.
Well, it's not so far from our esteemed climate czar, John Kerry, who's basically said, I can't believe this, not as dumb, but almost in the same league, that if Russia was better with their greenhouse gases and their adherence to a greener agenda, people might not, think of them as in such a bad way with the war in Ukraine. Another genius, the
Right.
orchestrator of the Iran deal. Yes,
Right.
genius.
Never mind that they're trying to take over Ukraine, that they're trying to subjugate the Ukrainian people. Never mind the fact that they subjugate their own people, throwing them in jail for political discourse.
Or
No,
killing
it's
them.
what's really bad about Russia is their greenhouse emissions. Yeah, that's the problem with Russia.
But it does point to the fixation on global warming with the left. Is there global warming? Yes, but it's increasingly becoming an hysteria and it's becoming a religion, isn't it?
It is, and what's really sad is that, yes, we do need to take steps to prevent catastrophes. But everything that the Biden administration is doing is actually making it worse. The environmental impacts of the construction of the EVs causes more environmental damage than the emissions from gas powered cars. The infrastructure that we have, the electrical grid, cannot handle what he's proposing with electric cars. The grid needs to be completely overhauled, which, by the way, modernizing the grid all by itself would help climate change and help fight greenhouse emissions. But does he do that? No, no, no. He passed a fortune in infrastructure spending. And what was this spent on? Putting traffic cameras on roads. That's where they decided the important infrastructure spending should go.
Well,
And
Buttigieg said that the highway system is racist.
well, yes,
Which is
highways are intrinsically racist, according to Buttigieg. And by the way,
genius.
we allocated millions of dollars to the building of electric car charging stations. And how many chargers has the Biden administration actually built?
I think
Seven.
none.
No,
Oh, okay, sorry.
seven. Millions of dollars to build seven chargers. He's now pushing for all trucks to go electric. And in Chicago, a trucking company put in for a permit to build charging stations for their fleet of trucks. And Chicago denied the permit because the amount of electricity needed to power the charging station would blow Chicago's grid.
Well, isn't it just indicative of, as Obama said, you never underestimate the ability of Uncle Joe to F things up?
Yeah,
And also, by the way, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, said this basically the biggest reduction in greenhouse gases in the United States is with the grid, but replacing coal with hydrogen. And that leads to a bigger issue. It was the libs and the Dems that got rid of nuclear power. Hello,
yeah,
think of all
that
the technological advancements that would have happened. Remember all the no nukes, no nukes? Again, emotion. They're supposed to be the scientists, the geniuses, but it was all based on emotion. And if we had a larger percentage of our grid powered by nuclear power, it would be a exponentially safer. It is 40 years ago since 3 Mile Island. And again, leave it to the Dems to F things up.
yes, and I do want to remind people that, yes, 3 Mile Island was a catastrophe. It caused a grand total of 0 fatalities. How many fatalities have we had in coal mines?
Or
Which,
just the reciprocal effects of living next to a coal-fired either furnace or factory with lung damage and other medical. Hello,
right.
I wouldn't want to live next to either. I'd rather live next to a nuclear power plant than a coal-fired plant. Hello.
We should have pushed nuclear power. We would have pushed back the effects of climate change by decades. Our grid would be much more secure and capable of making more changes that would benefit the environment. But no, the Democrats and the liberals have always focused on emotion rather than fact. And that is now this is working to their detriment because we're seeing people don't want to buy electric cars. They're fighting against it. There aren't the charging stations necessary. The grid can't handle it. And the courts have struck down Biden's ability to force the issue. So,
Well, force. Well, but force is a interesting word. Isn't that Stalinistic? Like the 5-year plan. We all need to drive whatever those crappy cars they had. I mean, these people are socialists. Let's just cut the crap.
they're socialists, and I mean, I find it absolutely hysterical every time the Democrats start yelling that Trump is a threat to democracy. Really? Who are the guys that shut down free speech in regards to COVID and Hunter Biden's laptop? Who are the guys who are forcing people to give up appliances, to give up gas powered cars? This is not Trump doing all of this. The American people and the market forces are what should be being relied on. And of course, the Democrats don't want to do that because they want to control things. That's what this is all
Means of
about.
production. That's all they want.
Yes.
I was going to say that, but yes, you beat me to the punch, which is more than fine. 100% agree. If it was a rational analysis and strategy, that's one thing, but it's not. Okay, it's ridiculous. But speaking of something that's not ridiculous, as Uncle Joe needed the help of two other people to get 25 million, Trump nailed down 50. Quite interesting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the Biden administration made a big deal over this New York fundraiser that gathered Biden, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Stephen
The
Colbert,
Three
Queen,
Stooges.
yeah, Stephen Colbert, Queen Latifah, Lizzo, several other celebrities, and they set a record of $25 million for the fundraiser. And a few days later, Donald Trump held a solo fundraiser in Mar-a-Lago and doubled it.
So what does this say? What is your read? It's what, 8 months out, 200 and something days. Um, what are you feeling about the election? One thing I think is really important. We have the New York trial coming up, I believe, next week. I think that's pivotal. Where do you see the election? I'll throw one more thing: is we look at it, we have the inflation numbers, and it's still a huge problem, 3.5%, and gas is up 50% since Uncle Joe took office. Lot to digest, but where do you see this? The polls are saying swing states are going for Trump, except I think Minnesota is even or something. Where do you see this, and how big of a impact do you think the New York trial is going to be?
There's going to be a lot of factors that are going to impact it. Right now, Trump is ahead, but his lead is within the margin of error. So it's basically a coin toss at this point. Inflation numbers just came out higher than expected for the third month in a row. This has killed Joe's campaigning on Bidenomics.
That's gone, yeah.
He was being told to stop talking about it before. Now it's completely off the table. If he continues touting Bidenomics, it's going to tank him. The New York trial could tank Trump. It's going to depend on if he is found guilty, if it's
That is
even
over.
even if it's a fair trial. I don't know if it's over at that point. It's also going to depend on the appeals process, because again, on a strictly legal standpoint, there is no case here. There's a federal charge that New York does not have the ability to prosecute, that the federal government already said there was no case to prosecute. They're pushing that. And there's a local statute that is beyond the statute of limitations that they're trying anyway. So, strictly on a legal basis, if Trump were to be found guilty, any appeals court would have to overturn it. Now, that doesn't mean, now, we've already seen most of these trials are strictly politically motivated. We saw in some January 6th trials and in some trials about Russiagate that the juries were not finding on a basis of law. They were voting based on their politics. So that it is still very plausible that a Democratic New York jury will find him guilty despite the fact that there's no crime.
Yeah, I think it's going to have an impact. I think if the New York trial goes south, blows up, I think Trump is in. How do you like that? Because the tea leaves aren't good for Uncle Joe. Continuous inflation, these are things that hit home. No one gives a shit about all these other nonsensical things, okay? The only thing that could trip up Trump politically, I believe, is abortion. Arizona, just I believe, Supreme Court just basically there's has a very restrictive abortion measures. I think Trump's stand on abortion was excellent. Where do you think abortion is playing into all of this?
Well, we said earlier in the podcast the Democrats push emotions rather than facts. So
Yeah.
here are the facts about abortion. No matter who you vote for president, no matter who you vote for Senate or Congress, abortion is not on the table because the Supreme Court said it is a matter for the states.
Which
In
always
or,
should have been the case.
right now, in order to do a national ban, which is what the Democrats are trying to scare people into believing, or in order to do a national abortion law permitting abortion, which the Biden Harris campaign has been saying they will sign that into law if they are reelected, it has to go through Congress. Now, regardless of what happens in the House, there are not enough jump ball seats available in the Senate for either side to get 60 votes. You cannot pass an abortion bill unless you have 60 votes. Neither side is going to have that. So abortion is not going to be on the table for a national bill. If you are
And they know
concerned
that.
if you are concerned about abortion in either direction, focus on your state legislature, focus on your governors, because that's where the decision is going to be made. If you are making a decision on a congressperson, a senator, or the presidential race based on abortion, you are throwing your vote away. Either
But
way.
again, it's with liberalism, the party of science, the party of intellectualism. It really always boils down to emotions, and that even gets back to the whole anti-nuke movement, all based on emotions, no actual science.
No,
But we,
and this is why Roe v. Wade was overturned, because Ruth Bader Ginsburg told everybody for years that it was bad case law and it was going to be overturned if Congress did not ratify it and did not pass a law. Under the Obama administration, the Democrats controlled both houses with 60 votes in the Senate. They controlled the White House. Obama campaigned that he was going to pass a national bill protecting abortion, and the Democrats balked. They didn't do it because they didn't want to take away their fundraising issue.
No question about it. Interesting when you talk about the political landscape. Joe Rogan on his podcast, I think it was the other day, I don't believe it's true, said that he believes that he asserted that the Dems will pull Biden in May and replace him with Newsom. Your thoughts?
At this point, they can't do it. In order for the Democrats to pull him off the ticket, they have to say he is incompetent and
Well,
not
he is.
and not capable of being president. They cannot take the nomination away from him without his permission at this point because he has the necessary delegates already sewn up. Now, the Democrats do have super delegates, but if they use the super delegates, they are telling the Democratic voters that we don't care who you support. We don't care what you think. We are telling you who our candidate is going to be. The only way they have around this is to use the 25th Amendment to remove him from office because he is mentally incompetent. And they won't do it because Kamala is not ready for prime time.
No, she's not ready for cable access. Let's be honest. Yes, it's very, very interesting. You mentioned the Senate, the uh, basically Schumer threatens to kind of. He had two things. He wants to expedite it as quick as possible, and then he mentioned that he's going to shelve it. But Mayorkas impeachment. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the Mayorkas impeachment isn't even going to the House at this point. They know they don't have the votes. They know it's not going to result in anything in the Senate. It was a complete waste of time. Should Mayorkas be disciplined? Absolutely. Was impeachment the way to do it? No, because they knew it was never going to go
He should have
anywhere.
been censured.
Yes, a censure could have gotten past the House. That wouldn't have been a problem, but they went a bridge too far and shot themselves in the foot.
What else is new with the Republicans? We even have Marjorie Taylor Greene. Again with Johnson, the whole thing is just bizarre. When you have, leave it to the Republicans. When you're on a roll, screw it up. Start mentioning, get too radical on abortion. Stop, start infighting with each other, and have morons like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who should be working at a trailer park, screw things up. But
I know
that's the way it is.
Green needs to be removed.
How
I
about
mean,
institutionalized
talk about incompetent, talk about
moron?
insane. She is the poster child for that. As crazy as the wackos on the left are, Green is their equivalent on the right. And all of
Yes.
these folks need to be removed from any leadership positions. They need to be, they're just put in a corner and kept quiet.
The only thing she would serve is a poster child for Mental Health Awareness Month, and then she can leave. There you go. Um, Looks like things again continue to be very dangerous in the Middle East. Israel took out a leader of Iran, and then Iran said that they were going to basically counter and have and strike Israel or their embassies. Israel is now vowing that if there's any retaliation, Israel will strike hard at Iran. Your thoughts? As
Is,
Biden flips on Israel because he's obviously concerned about Michigan and possibly Minnesota.
Yeah, Biden is pushing a two-state solution, and those two states are Michigan and Minnesota. He
I
doesn't
love
give it.
that.
He
Perfect.
doesn't care about Palestine. He doesn't care about Israel. He doesn't care about the Gaza Strip. He cares about his reelection. And
Always did.
for those folks who haven't been paying very close attention, yet another ceasefire proposal was shot down by Hamas. Why? Because Hamas only wants to talk about a permanent ceasefire because they know they're about to be wiped out. They also will not commit to any number of hostage releases. Now, this is important because we have
They know
never.
time is on their side.
Well, see, but that's the thing. We have never seen proof of life on these hostages. The fact that there are reports coming out that the last proposal required them to give up and release 40 hostages, and there are reports that Palestinians are claiming they don't have 40 hostages left alive to release. I think we need to focus on the fact that Hamas has killed, if not all, then most of these hostages, and they need to be removed. And even the Palestinians are coming around to this. The Palestinian Authority is starting to resist Hamas. So the idea that Israel is in the wrong is absolutely ridiculous.
But when you have a fickle president like Uncle Joe, who's always been an opportunistic piece of shit, and the only reason he ran to Israel because he thought that it was politically expedient, but when it blew up, then he's flipping sides. I actually think it's excellent. Not that he's flipping, but the political ramifications. He always puts himself, because he's so effing stupid, in a no-win situation. If he alienates Israel, he further loses and erodes the Jewish vote. If he doubles down on Israel, he loses the Hamas vote, or should I say, the Squad and the Michigan constituency. So he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, Uncle Joe, who has no real conviction, never did, never will.
No, and
just a carpetbagging sleaze bag with a low IQ. Now, on top of that, he's got dementia. There you go.
and let's not forget the fact that Hamas, Hezbollah, these terrorist groups are funded by Iran. How does Iran have the money to fund them? Because Joe Biden stopped enforcing financial sanctions against them. Because Joe Biden made Iran able to sell oil again so that he could kowtow to the climate change folks saying, well, we're cutting back our oil sales, and allowed Iran to do it. Essentially, the Biden administration has funded the attack on Israel.
Indirectly correct, yes. Yep, the boy geniuses. But speaking of funding, I'd like to leave on this because I'm a strong proponent of this. And actually, I don't agree with him very often. Juan Williams thinks the same. NPR, there was their national propaganda radio, national public radio, actually. Basically, it was a report no Republicans are in any kind of leadership position. Isn't it really time, Dr. Eric E. Lopkin, that we pull the plug on this political hack organization? Why are we funding this shit?
Yeah, it is absolutely
goodbye.
amazing that a publicly funded media corporation is so biased. And just to really dig into this, the report was not simply about the fact that there are no Republicans working at NPR. First of all, this was not done by a conservative think tank. This was not done by a conservative watchdog group. This report was from one of NPR's own editors. In fact, their business editor is the one
Yep.
that came out and lambasted NPR for hitching their wagon to the Russiagate scandal. And then, when it turned out there was none, completely pretending that they had never reported on it. Completely whitewashing Hunter Biden. This is what NPR has been doing. They have been, again, another media arm of the Democratic Party, but in this case, it's one being funded by the federal government.
First thing, if Trump gets in, first thing, second, third, fourth thing, one of the top things he should do, pull the plug. And by the way, its previous nickname was National Palestinian Radio.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
and all these liberals that listen to it, it's pathetic.
And there is, at this point, between cable television, satellite radio, internet radio, podcasts, both NPR and PBS are obsolete. There is no reason for the government to be funding these.
Yeah, the 1960s are over. Thank you very much.
And the fact of the matter is, NPR has not capitalized on this to the same extent, but PBS brings in a fortune through cable carriage fees because they have multiple cable networks. So they don't need government funding anymore. They don't need to break into their programming with their semi-annual begathons. They have managed to make money. So why are we still funding them like they're a nonprofit?
And they make money with licensing too and merchandising.
Yes, they do.
Well, I'm all for pulling the plug because anyone who, and by the way, I have a friend who listens to that crap. The kind of shit they spew, it's actually comical. It makes The View look like Harvard's debating society. It's unbelievable. Anyway, Dr. Lopkin, great podcast, great analysis. As always, you've been on fire lately, and our listeners can give their input, can't they?
They can. Let's hear what you have to say. Go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page and message us. You can also go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.